So welcome to Intertek's Natural Disaster Hurricane Series. I'm Shawn Donovan. I'm excited to bring you Intertek's new series of discussions on natural disasters relating to testing, certification, codes, and much more. Our discussion will be around 15 to 20 minutes, asking the most relevant questions for building product manufacturers and other industry professionals. Today, I'll be talking to Emma Amaral, Evaluation Services Manager for Canada. So Emma, can you share with everyone a little bit about your background and your current role with Intertek?
Sure. So I studied integrated engineering and I graduated in 2011 from University of British Columbia. And a year after graduation, I joined Intertek as a project engineer. I was mainly responsible for assisting building products, manufacturers certify their products to the North American Building Code requirements. I did that for about 8 years, and then I took on a management role. So that's the current role that I have right now. So I have a team of engineers here in Vancouver and a team in Mississauga in Ontario. And together we are basically managing all certification projects within Canada when it comes to building products.
Awesome. Thanks for that. And so I'm kind of excited about this. This is the first time you and I have met. And our previous two discussions that we had have really been focused around glass and glazing. And so I'm kind of excited about this because my understanding is your focus is really more around, or at least our discussion today is going to be more around roofing and cladding. And with that being said, can you give a little background? I call it kind of the Reader's Digest version of the related codes and standards that you guys deal with clients related to those product categories.
Sure. So when it comes to the Florida Building Code, right? So the newest edition being the 2020 that just got published, you do have more stringent requirements on both for both cladding and roofing, right? So these are the elements in within your building that are protecting you from the exterior environment. So they are to protect you from all of the wind loads and also the airborne objects that are flying around during a hurricane, right? So all of the wind load tests and impact tests that are required for cladding products, we do all of that. So these would be your TAS, your TAS protocols. And again, we do testing and certification in accordance with these standards. And also on the roofing side, it's the same thing, right? You're concerned about uplift. We do the required testing and the TAS protocols on the roofing elements as well. So all around for these building enclosure or building envelope elements and components, we do the full testing and certification.
Great. And then if we kind of dive into the consulting and the research and development engineering side, is that a big part of what you guys do with clients? I mean, do you kind of coach them or consult them initially on kind of the best path to take when they're trying to get approvals?
Definitely. So again, on the Florida side, you have the Florida product approval, and then you have the Miami-Dade approval. So that would be for your Miami-Dade NOA. And for both, Intertek acts as the consultant on behalf of the client, right? To either do the full compliance. So on the Florida product approval side, we would, or on the Miami-Dade NOA side, we would do all the preparation for the final submittal. So we can definitely, again, assist the clients from the start, but we are not the final product approval agencies in either case, right? So we do act as the consultant on behalf of the clients.
And then do you typically, because I know on the glass and glazing side, R&D is kind of a big part to kind of see how the systems are going to perform and all that. Is it the same when it comes to roofing products and cladding products? Is there typically an R&D that you recommend?
So I do recommend it for some of the larger scale tests just because they are expensive, right? So with some of the material property tests, I wouldn't necessarily do that, but I do recommend it again for the expensive programs, right? Just because the R&D testing would help the clients, engineers and scientists learn more about their products, right? See if they have to evaluate, reformulate, redesign, right? So I do always recommend that, but again, with the caveat that results might not be used for certification. Right? So it will help you, it will provide you with more insightful information about the performance of your product. But just keep in mind that most likely another round of testing would be needed unless you have the full traceability in place on the test specimens that have been tested for R&D purposes. And obviously that there are no modifications to the test procedure itself.
Is it fair to say when companies invest in R&D, potentially it can save them money in the long run because now they better understand the system and what they need to do to have it actually meet the test requirements?
Definitely. So most of the testing on the larger scale side, right? Replicate of 3 is needed, right? So before the client ships all of their materials across the country, perhaps, right, to our lab to do the testing, before they send installers to do the full installation, before they come out to witness the testing and pay for all that travel fees. Again, it saves money down the line. Exactly.
Now, when it comes to engineering, does companies typically, do they have their own in-house engineers, or do they call on your team to help engineer the systems, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it really depends on the scale, I guess, the size of the company, right? So a lot of the larger manufacturers have their own internal engineers, designers, right? But some of the smaller companies don't. But even with the smaller companies that do not have internal engineers, we avoid participating in the design phase. Just because, again, if we're the testing agency, right, we're doing the testing, it's very hard for me to say, okay, do your testing at this span and you'll get this rating, right? Because at the end of the day, if they don't, then it's very much easy to just point a finger, right? So it's just something that we have always avoided when it comes to the design phase of a project. But again, that's why the whole R&D discussion comes into play. So we invite clients to come witness their testing, right? We'll have the open discussion about failure modes, but we won't really necessarily recommend details or suggestions when it comes to installation. That's just something that we try to avoid.
So we talked about the consulting, R&D, and then ultimately the certification, right? So what is typically involved both from a time standpoint and investment when it comes to getting your certifications on the products?
Yeah, so certification, again, compared to just testing, it is a lot more extensive and expensive, right? So the whole point of certification is to show compliance on an ongoing basis, okay? So testing, you send your test specimens to our lab, we do testing, we send you a test report that says this passed, or this is the rating that the product achieved. And that is it, right? So come a year from now, 5 years from now, I have no idea if that product has stayed the same or if it still continues to meet the requirements of that standard. That's where certification comes into play. Certification shows that on an ongoing basis by essentially us conducting follow-up inspections at the client's manufacturing facility to make sure the product itself has stayed the same, right? So if over time you demonstrate that a product has stayed the same, and if the requirements of the standard or the code have stayed the same, then just compliance remains unchanged, right? But again, it's a lot more expensive and time consuming because it takes time to certify a manufacturing facility, right? We do the 2 unannounced inspections per year. So that costs money for the inspector to travel to, and just for maintenance of the listing program itself, for the certification program itself. But obviously it provides a lot more value than testing on its own.
And the certification, again, you're either getting certified if we're in the hurricane market, either by Florida's product approvals or Miami-Dade notice of acceptance, correct?
Yeah. Optional, but yeah, that it's either, and again, Florida provides you with the Florida product approval, provides you with the statewide approval. Miami-Dade is just for a very specific region, right? So that covers you for the high velocity hurricane zone within the state of Florida.
So Emma, with the certifications, obviously you can get Florida product approvals, you can get Miami-Dade notice of acceptance. And I'm assuming part of the consultation with your clients is you kind of talk about that, right? What markets they're going to participate in and what certifications that they need.
Exactly. So, and that, all of that information takes place during the kickoff call or meeting that we have with the client prior to starting the test program, right? Again, when people go for approval in Florida, your number 1 question is, okay, are you seeking recognition outside the high velocity hurricane zone and inside, right? Because again, that would change your testing requirements, right? So all of that is discussed, and it changes the overall cost of the project as well, right? But all those details are discussed at the start of the project.
I'm curious, Emma, when it comes to, because obviously a building envelope has multiple types of products, the glass and glazing, the cladding, the roofing. When you get involved with consultation and testing, is there any consideration of the combination of products, or is it always kind of individual to kind of the product category, if you will?
Yeah, and it's mainly that it is product category based, right? So it's very rare that you would evaluate uplift, for example, of your roof, and also evaluate the wind resistance on your cladding during the same test. Most of the times they're kept separate.
Okay.
And again, it goes back to having so many different specific and unique test methods for each product type.
Right. Okay. I'm curious, have you seen any in your space? Have you seen any innovations as far as products or designs or things that have kind of changed over the years based on some of these requirements in the hurricane market?
So in general, in this field of work, dealing with or certifying innovative products is a little bit challenging, right? So innovative slash alternative materials are a lot more difficult to certify. They're allowed, the code allows you to have alternative materials, but I haven't seen too many trends when it comes to the product itself, right? But people are playing around with the installation details more, right? So we see a lot of that, and that really helps. It really helps with the new buildings and also retrofitting existing buildings to make them more hurricane resistant.
So Emma, this has been great. I really appreciate your time and answering all these questions. So let me just finish with this. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you think might be beneficial to the folks that are listening in on this?
Sure. With all the different, again, products out there, all the different test standards and code requirements, jurisdiction requirements, it does become overwhelming. So contact us is just my number one recommendation. Contact your product engineer, right, your product controller to get assistance. And we have the expertise, and we'll be able to assist and make it a lot easier.
And I think yeah, what I'm learning, and the beauty of Intertek is, there's so many resources in-house, it almost becomes a one-stop shop for folks when they're really looking to get answers, as well as going down the entire path of what we're talking about here with R&D and consulting and certification and all.
Yeah, exactly. That is it. We do the certification, we do the inspections, we do the testing, we do it all. So
great. Well, Emma, thanks a lot, and I appreciate your time.
thank you so much.
Okay.
Thanks.